Hi everyone. I'm about halfway through your logs and I wanted to get this message out today, even though I may not finish all of them until tomorrow. And let me explain some things about them as we move along through this slideshow. Um, First of all, your logs. Make sure you're focusing beyond what the quote says. Many of you had a quote and then told me what the quote said. And from that, I know what the quote said, so you don't have to tell me what it said, okay? What you need to tell me is how do the quotes relate to the purpose of the book? Or how do they relate to your life? What are the contrasts and the comparisons? Look at my comments on your paper. I will be posting a handout that explains to you how to find my comments, because some of you may have trouble finding it, and you just might find my note. Notice this week's log, I wrote down the points that you got on this week's log, which would be whatever out of 10. I'll do that each week, and then I'll total them up to make the final grade. So, to help you understand what I'm talking about when you are responding to your quotes and when you're responding and trying to identify the main idea, I want to introduce you to the transactional theory of reading. And that sounds like, oh my gosh, what's she telling me about? It's really simple. And I'm going to let this man who has this on YouTube tell you, because he does a heck of a lot better job than I would. So here he is.
Today we're going to talk about reader response theory. Reader response theory talks about how people read and what happens when people read. It was developed by a woman named Louise Rosenblatt back in the 30s. The basic premise of reader response theory is to describe what happens when readers and text come together. It's what's called a literary lens, a literary theory, a critical theory. It's what you study when you are an English major in college. But right now we're going to take a little taste of it, because it's important to understand this. Have you ever had an English teacher ask you to make a connection to a book or a story? Have you ever had an English teacher say, what does this remind you of? Or what questions are stirred when you read this text? He or she knows about reader response theory. They know that this is naturally what readers do when they read. The theory goes like this. There's a reader, and that reader walks around with his or her own personal ideologies, her own beliefs, her own experiences from life. And he or she takes those experiences and beliefs and reads text. And the text has its own features, its own characteristics. Texts have characters, they have settings, they have plots, they also have beautiful language. And when the reader and the text come together, the reader with his or her own beliefs, the text with its own features, that is how meaning is made. That's what happens when we read. So it's important to think about, well, who am I when I approach the text? What is it about me that makes me pay attention to certain particular aspects about the text? For example, why am I drawn to a certain character? Do I have personal beliefs that resemble that character? So these are the things to think about when we think about reader response theory. Of course, surrounding all of this experience are different contexts, different situations. For example, the way you read text is different when you're sitting on the beach in the summer as compared to when you're in an English class and the English teacher is asking you questions like, does this remind you of anything? So it's important to realize that the reader and the text and the context all work together to create that meaning. And it's a meaning that just you might have. There might be people who have similar backgrounds and create a similar meaning, but yours is going to be always slightly different because you are a slightly different person. And that's what we're going to talk more about.
Okay, Now that that's done, let's get back to the PowerPoint. Um, I think it's really important that you think about what this man said about this transactional theory. It's also called reader response if you're confused. And hopefully I'll give you some ideas for the log. Okay, now the quiz last week, I have set it so that you can see what you've missed. So go back into quiz 1 and select attempt 1 and you'll see your answers and the correct answers. The discussion board, I left comments. So when you look at your grade, please read my comments and learn from them. Now, this week, you have discussion boards due Wednesday and Friday. And you have a quiz due next Wednesday. You have to have this read so that you can write the Wednesday discussion board. And your log's due Friday. And I just spent a lot of time explaining to you what that log means and what you need to do. Okay, the discussion board. Its main focus is how does one of your quotes show the main idea of the text. Now, if I said to you that you didn't explain yourself well on the quotes, this is time to expand your thinking. And using that reader response transactional theory, you should be able to expand. What you need to think of, and some of you did and some of you didn't, when you were writing your summaries, is why did can't talk this morning. Why did Vance write this book? What is it he's trying to show you? What is it he's trying to explain? And you need to come up with that, the idea of what it is he is trying to explain, and then use one of your quotes to support it. Now, if you already explained the quote and I said you did a good job or exceptional in some cases, then you pretty much have the idea of what I'm looking for when you explain the quote, okay? Once you do that, then you'll respond. I was happy with last week's discussion, so keep doing what you're doing. The quiz is on Chapter 2. It's due Wednesday. Please create a summary of what's going on in Chapter 2 because you'll be using these later. If you don't want to write a summary, use an outline. Use some sort of T-chart, whatever it is that's going to help you remember the main points of Chapter 2. And then there's a true-false quiz. You can use your notes, you can use your book, but you only have 2 hours, so you can't really hunt and peck for the answers. The log, you should be reading the next 50 pages or so, maybe 40. Try for 50. And expand the ideas on the quotes, especially if I mentioned on your log that you needed to do that. Use a complete quote. Just don't take a portion of it. Some of you did that. And then explain how the quote relates to you, supports the main idea, or both. Again, think about that reader response video that I showed you. That's all for this week. I hope that you have a safe week, a good week, and I hope you're all thinking about those that are in the path of Irma. We've had a lot of devastation this summer with Harvey, now Irma, and the wildfires in the West. And if you're the praying sort, I'm sure these prayers will be much appreciated. Bye-bye.